So we start in the name of God, and we thank Him for giving us such opportunity to really discuss one of the most important issues of the day. That is, do we have an order or there is disorder globally? I don't know the question can be properly answered or not, but it is a real challenge for today international politics for both those who follow it intellectually and those who practice it. And we are so delighted that we have in this TDF panel very distinguished set of people and dignitaries, scholars, practitioners to discuss this issue. We are behind our time, and we have, I think the room is like international system. It has some noises, huh? The noises should be
disorder.
Yeah. Be order. So if in international system we cannot impose order, here we can do. And it's very important to really have a proper question. The proper question that I ask from all the panelists is, what is your analysis of the concept of order or the reality of order in international politics today? How you see it from your perspective? And we start by the former president of Croatia. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think it's really obvious for everyone that present or even now former world order is in state of dissolution. No decisive role of UN, international. Like, we are now in the state that we can almost name as anomia. That means no international law applicable in a reasonable manner. And of course, violence as a method how to reach political goals. International Court of Justice is somewhere, who knows where is it now? It is almost not existing. So we're in a very dangerous period when we have to recognize that we need some order. On previous panel, we heard that there is something even among animals, some kind of natural order. But I don't like. I think we are better than animals. We can reach order based on awareness that we need international law, we need cooperation, and we need balance of interest.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's enough for.
I think it's enough for this start. So we go left to Turkey. How do you see the situation, Your Excellency? Oh, you don't
have the. Maybe you should go around. I don't have the microphone yet.
Oh, you speak in my like. It's another sign of Iranian Turkey property.
Indeed. I mean, first of all, it's so nice to be back in Tehran, where I spent 2 years, 30 years ago, in 1996 as a junior diplomat. And much has changed in Tehran, all for the better, of course. It has become such a wonderful, such a beautiful city. But unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the world order, unfortunately. When I was here back in 1996, still it was the post-Cold War vibe, where the hope was in the air. Really, I mean, we were thinking that, we were at least led to believe that the dialectical evolution of history has come to a final destination, and it was liberal democracy. And we were hoping the wars to fade, the international trade to boom, and the global institutions to work more smoothly. But unfortunately, after 30 years, as you have pointed out, of course, we cannot be further away from this idealistic projection, if I may say so. There are wars all about, from Ukraine to Gaza, from Sudan to many other places. But I think even more seriously is that, our security is not only threatened by armed conflict, classical armed conflicts, but we are now faced with a new phenomenon called hybrid warfare, including things like cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, deep intelligence operations and whatnot. But I think even worse than that, of course, is the international community. And the structures that we entrusted to deal with such challenges is completely helpless and paralyzed to find solution to these conflicts. We have been discussing since morning how the United Nations, unfortunately, of course, is completely incapable of even pronouncing itself in some, very outright conflicts like the one, the genocide going on in Gaza, of course. And unfortunately, of course, on the economic side, the situation is not very promising either. The international trade is artificially restricted by, illegal sanctions or by rising protectionism and whatnot. And if I may put it in the very last part of that is also, the whole world is seeing a growing populism or nativism, which is unfortunately, polarizing ourselves both internationally and domestically, creating new barriers between different parts of the world, and unfortunately fomenting planting the seeds of discord through, ideologies and hate crimes like, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, and also xenophobia. So I think there is every reason for us to be pessimistic. I would say. When you ask me about order, whether it is there or not, unfortunately, it is not there. But as an eternal optimist, as a diplomat, I would say that I still have my hope for the future. Because the fact that all of us from different parts of the world are here in Tehran discussing that and what the new world order should look like, at least give me some hope. And I think, beyond that also, there's no doubt that, no matter what we think of globalization and how we might struggle to fend it off, it is a fact. In the sense that, whatever happens in any part of the world has an impact on the rest of us. Small or large, no country is immune to or isolate itself from the developments in the world. So I think that brings to me, of course, that makes me believe that, security has become truly indivisible. And that we have all become, no matter where we are in the world, become the stakeholders of the same enterprise. I think the president of Iran has said it very clearly. We have a similar saying in Turkish as well. When your neighbor is in misery, you cannot sleep in rest. So I think this sort of understanding is now growing in the whole world. And a few other things. For example, the advances in technologies brings, of course, together with itself,
We can continue on the
challenges as well. But so looking into the future, also seeing that, the world has now become a multipolar country with countries like Turkey, Brazil, South Africa, and many others, not shying away from taking on responsibilities, but trying to pursue peace in their own ways. I think there's still light at the end of the dark tunnel that we are in right now.
Very good. You prove to be real diplomat. This word? Water us. Because they say hope for a diplomat is like water for a fish and courage for a soldier. And that's very fantastic, regardless of the dark picture that you depicted from the realities of international politics today. The end of tunnel, you see lights, and that's very good. Now we go to India. Mr. Joshua.
Thank you, Ambassador Sajjad, for such a pleasure being back at the IPIS and at a panel hosted by you.
Thank you.
And great panelists we have who've been doing a lot of work actually in conflict resolution. So it's a pleasure being with all of them here. The question about order and disorder, and we've been talking of our convergence and divergence, all the time, these are binaries. I'll take 2 points, two short points. My first point is that there have been large global shifts. All of us had been talking about them through this conference. I won't go into the details. But fundamentally, in those large global shifts, the nature of power is changing. And that is something we need to appreciate. We need to understand that before we start talking about disorder and order. What is the shift in the nature of power? Important shift. See, dominance, hegemonic dominance, which used to be, and dominance through brute force, which used to be one of the instruments of power, is no longer the currency which is going to be lasting forever now. It is under threat. What is the new currency of power? Look around you. Resilience. Resilience is the new currency of power which is actually gaining strength. If you see the happenings around you today, you're seeing many David and Goliath battles. Goliath, huge, strong, David armed with a slingshot. Overturning, challenging, big power hegemony and turning things completely around upside down. It is also to do with the nature of state capacity which is deteriorating. And obviously, whereas COVID was the first instant, where we saw the strongest nations show their weaknesses. They suffered the most. Some of the weaker nations actually proved far more resilient. So there's a fundamental shift in the nature of power taking place. That is the first thing. Second thing is then we start talking about order and disorder, convergence, divergence. No, when we start thinking in terms of these, I would say, bipolar, belonging to a bipolar world order, which is dead and gone anyway, finished long ago. That shifted. If you start looking at the idea of order and disorder, I mean, the Eastern philosophy, the Eastern mindset fundamentally is that order and disorder are cycles, and each contains the seed of its opposite. Inherent in order are the seeds of disorder. And you see it all around in every society. No matter how organized, no matter how regimented, there are the seeds of disorder in that. And the opposite is also true. Within disorder are always the seeds of order. Then it is a matter of what kind of political leadership takes over, takes control. Which seeds are you going to be nurturing? Which seeds will you water? That becomes a question. And that is how these cycles are going to be moving in the future. So these are the two important points I'd like to make.
Excellent. So you are suggesting there is so much dynamism in order and disorder, and the seeds of disorder is planted when there is an order, and you cannot really go to a very linear thinking.
You cannot go to linear thinking, and you see these shifts taking place all around. Even if you look at the most, we say that, there was order in the world during the days of the Cold War. Was there? Was there really order in the world during the days of the Cold War?
So there is
Nonsense.
okay. There is a very interesting shift in our panel. We go from India to Romania. Liz, for 4 minutes of it.
Yes, thanks so much. Okay, order means peace. Let's be simple. Order means peace. War, it's disorder. The fact that we are seeing around us either wars, proper wars, or cold wars, some other kind of cold wars, or wars to come, speaks that we are living or are crossing a time of disorder. The variables of any order are the games of interest and the balance of power. And the nature of the order depends very much on the nature of power. It could be a military power, it could be an economic power, it could be a cultural power, and so on. And I believe that if we have to look forward a new order, we perhaps should look to the components of the power. I believe, and during the lunch it was very well noticed that, or stressed that we have to understand that the nature of power is changing. It's not anymore the alliances of military powers which opposes some other alliances. It's about the capacity to network, the capacity to establish from case-to-case basis a solidarity of interest. And the participants to these groups should achieve some kind of partnership with variable geometry. Well, it is in the past, maybe in Europe, after the Congress of Wien in 1815, when we have established the concert of nations, everything was fluid, and therefore you could avoid wars for about 1 century. When alliances became ossified, the Central Powers and the Entente, then the war became unavoidable and we had wars. What we have to do is precisely to avoid this kind of so-called permanent, which are not permanent alliances, but to generate, based on the solidarity of interest, the strategy of common projects, which certainly is grouping, is networking participants in groups with variable geometry. I just want to add one single idea. For 2 centuries, I believe, it was Europe which decided the rules of the game, the rules of the order, because the order means rules and institutions. Rules and institutions. And it was Europe for 2 centuries which decided which are the rules of the global order. Then it follows 1 century of America. It was the Pax Americana for 1 century. Now the Pax Americana is exhausted, is over. I'm not going into detail why, but I think it's obvious. And I think that we are living now the century of Asia. This is the place where from the new model of the world order is going to grow. And I think that from that point of view, it's good that we are here. And certainly, if possible, we should cooperate. We, as European, I wouldn't like to see an Asia model growing up without our contribution. And I know that if we do not, support you in order to move in that direction, it is a risk that this new order becomes against us, not without us, but against us. So my plea is, let's work together for a new order, but which will be based on Asiatic models and on Asian culture.
So you ended a very important point, that is the role of Asia in new setting, and we have Russia right now, which is Eurasian power. Mr. Zatulin, and actually is there a very important center, which I visited, Center for Central Asian Studies in Moscow, which is also Asia Center. Please, Mr. Zatulin.
Thank you. Just now, I think we have a Russian interpreter who is good Russian better with bad English. I will try to speak Russian if possible.
Понимаю, Борис.
Дипломаты выступают у нас целый день, но со всем уважением к дипломатам, язык дан дипломатам для того, чтобы скрывать свои мысли. Поэтому хотел бы сказать то, что я в самом деле думаю.
Первый корабль.
So it's Channel Valley.
Так. Вот сегодня в начале, утром, Рахбар, уважаемый Аятолла Хаминеи, напомнил нам о самом главном событии конца XX века, о распаде Советского Союза, системы социализма и о американской гордыне, со слов президента Буша-старшего, который сказал об установлении Пакс Американо. Но вот сейчас Пакс Американо пришел в тупик. Кто же выиграл от того, что пропал баланс? Пропало то, что называлось соревнованием двух миров, иногда приплетали еще и третий. В настоящее время экономическое и политическое возвышение Китая, развитие Индии и других государств Юга, наконец, вставание России с колен при Путине, все это заставляет нас сегодня говорить о странах мирового большинства, которые отстаивают или пытаются внедрить концепцию многополярного мира. Конечно, мы давным-давно со средних веков не жили в многополярном мире. Но это имеет прямое отношение к вопросу порядка или беспорядка. Вот администрация Соединенных Штатов, новая администрация Соединенных Штатов, она сделала какие-то выводы из того, что произошло? Конечно, сделала. Но совсем не те, на которые рассчитывали прекраснодушные идеалисты в наших странах. Америка при Трампе утверждает в новом издании, пытается утвердить концепцию американско-центричного мира, причем в таком наиболее упрощенной и грубой форме. Я сказал, ты должен сделать. И в этом проблема. И вы можете спросить, а с чем тогда связано то, что мы можем назвать изменением модальности или стиля, каким-то потеплением
в российско-американских отношениях на данном этапе? Ну, во-первых, я бы хотел заметить, что не надо преувеличивать. С того низкого уровня, на который опустились наши отношения при Байдене, любое движение вверх кажется эйфорическим. А во-вторых, мне кажется очевидным, что это нормализация до некоторой степени отношений, которая идет.
So,
Я заканчиваю. Она связана просто с тем, что господин Трамп делает выводы из той войны, которую проиграл Запад уже на Украине, не достигнув своих целей нанести непоправимый ущерб России. И он не хотел бы, чтобы Россия дальше этой войной заталкивалась в союз с Китаем, с Ираном и так далее. Вот в чем его интерес. И мы, конечно, были бы странными людьми, если бы старались его в России использовать, но это совсем не значит, что Россия, так же как Украина, готова подписать любую сделку о недрах. Вот это то, что я думаю по поводу происходящего на наших глазах. Спасибо.
very good. Thank you for your view on this, especially interactions between the United States and Russia, and also their personal role of individuals in shaping the new realities. Now we turn to Ambassador Manal from Saudi Arabia. Please.
Thank you very
It works.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the warm welcome. I feel really, emotionally charged, the last few days being here with you in Tehran and enjoying meeting many of the Iranian brothers and sisters. I also feel a special privilege, I think, being the first woman on stage. So I think that's a sign of hope, no? Yes. The privilege of being last to speak is that you hear everyone else. The problem is that they've all said what you wanted to say. So let me just join the club of optimists, also by the nature of being a diplomat, and say that we really need to be optimist. And also let me join by saying that these binary conversions, diversions, wifaq, iftiraq, are really abstract constructs, because I think at any one point we are at a crossroad of both. And if we want to take agency seriously, then we need to know that it is also our responsibility to work to escape all of the conditions that would produce this divergence, and we can work for convergence. There is also another binary that I thought that was repeated many times over since the morning that I wanted to also address and say, this regional versus international, I think, is also another false dichotomy. Everything that is regional in our neighborhood and in any place in the world has a very strong international aspect to it. A lot of the international has a very core regional interest that impact us. So instead of, for example, viewing a close relationship between any one country or regional powers with international partners as a source of threat, I think what is important is to view it as a leverage that can be used for not only the benefit of the region, but the benefit of world order. At the end of the day, I was very warmly, very much appreciative of what His Excellency the President tried to emphasize of how connected we are. And so through this connectedness, I think it is very wrong for us to think of these binary divisions. One last comment, I think it's also kind of a trap to do one of two things. Either romanticize the past, to say, oh, it was better 1,000 years ago, 600 years ago, or 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, because the past is always rosy. And another related problem is also to blame others for what we are facing. I think we are at a horrific moment where our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, in Gaza and the West Bank, are being slaughtered, starved, and denied basic human needs with an alarming acceptance, normalization of the situation and complete paralysis of world order. But it's also a time to reflect what got us here, all of us collectively. What got us here and how can we have lessons learned to move out of this through our agency and also through a different perspective and a different relationship between ourselves, but also with our international partners.
Excellent. So, very good points, and thank you so much, especially on bringing the issue of agency. And I think we have to focus a little bit on this issue, and I put some ideas on this regard. But I really enjoyed the first round of inputs by our colleague in this panel. I think we were enriched, and the only place that enrichment hasn't any problem, huh? So enrichment intellectually and practically. But I gathered two major trends in the discussion that we had thus far. One is structural changes are happening in the concept of power, in shift of power, in place of power. Europe is not anymore the center of the world. We have Asia, and we have other structural issues like the deadlock of Pax Americana or the other structural dimensions which shake international order. The second point is agency, that we have now multiple level of agency and different agents in the world which are shaking the new realities of international system. If these two is somehow the summation and conceptualization of what we had, now I start the second round with this question that how our colleagues and panelists see the issue of agency from their own national perspective. And as I start from Turkey, Türkiye, I have to be correct, Türkiye. We also in fashion use Türkiye, and I have to inform you that now you have a microphone, it's not exchange, so you can own it, and you start. So the question is how you see the issue of agency at large and how you apply it to Turkey and what Turkey is doing in shaping international order. And the same question goes on for the other finalists. Please.
I think this question about agency is very much important. How are we going to implement the ideas that we all agree on? What would be the agency to put them in an orderly fashion? And I think, first of all, before coming to Turkey and what we do in our own region and beyond, I think that requires, this question of agency requires us to think about the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council first and foremost. Because it's obvious that this structure, which represents the power balance of 80 years ago, definitely must be reformed. It's again obvious that the permanent 5 countries with veto powers does not ensure the peaceful settlement of disputes. On the contrary, it is, on so many occasions, has become the part of the problem itself. So that's why I think we need a reformed United Nations Security Council for us to reach an effective agency, an effective multilateralism in that regard. That's why, of course, President Erdogan always say that a fairer world is indeed possible when we realize that the world is bigger than 5. So I think that we definitely need to keep in mind. But of course, we in our own regions, all the countries, and as I said, the world has truly become a multipolar world, with countries like Turkey and many others not shying away from taking on responsibility, but pursuing peace with their own capabilities and with their own competitive advantages. And Turkey is definitely one of the examples of that. We try in our own ways and within our own capabilities, means and capabilities, to do the best we can in order to generate peace and stability within our region. And I don't want to, speak too much of our, but just look at what happened in the last week in Istanbul. the direct talks after 3 years, the first direct talks after 3 years between Russia and Ukraine has taken place in Istanbul through our facilitation. And I mean, the very first encounter between US and US and Syria at the level of foreign ministers took place in Antalya, for example, where Secretary Rubio and Minister Sheybani met and discussed about what they can do in order to give Syria a chance for development and prosperity and such. And of course, Iran has had its first round of talks after a long period of time with the E33 countries about their nuclear. So we try our best in order to bring parties together and provide them a platform of dialogue and diplomacy. Because we believe that only through diplomacy and dialogue we can tackle those problems. As many said throughout the morning, I mean, we need to look at each other not from a prism of threats, but from a prism of opportunities. And all we do in Turkey is to try to create a platform, create a venue where different parties can look at each other through that prism.
Thank you. Now we go to Mr. Joshi, India.
Well, I would endorse what is coming from Turkey. So that is primarily what India has been trying to do. We believe in dialogue. I think India is a place where you can have any kind of conversation. No one is a pariah. No one is excluded. And all kinds of conversations, you've been to our dialogues. It is just like the IPS where every conversation can take place. So that is the importance of dialogue, getting people together and having free and frank conversations as the only way you can move forward and resolve conflict. If you exclude people from the room and say they are not allowed to come here and speak, there's a problem. Then the conflict, you have already resolved that you will not resolve the conflict. So that is a dead end. Now, where do multilateral institutions fit in? They are facing problems. They're primarily facing problems because the ones who created them have been undermining them themselves.
Yeah.
Now, because they've not found them useful enough anymore. Things have moved. Centers of power have shifted. And it is not just a multipolar world. See, the powers of the P5, the big five of yesteryears, today find it difficult to come to grips with the changed realities. Their powers have shifted. So there is this effort as to weaken that institution. And it is a body which is observed more in the breach than the order. So that needs to change. How it will change, I do not know, because no one gives up power easily. Meanwhile, countries do recognize, and many countries like India do recognize, that we are not just in a multipolar world. The world is more complicated. It has become multinodal. There are far too many which speak of agency. Agency today is far more amorphous, far more distributed. Where does agency lie? So many of the decisions which get taken under the veil of states have the origins and roots somewhere else. We've seen that operation time and time again. So how do you take care of a world where large corporations, civil society members, where one incident in Gaza sparks outrage right across the world, where people come together, come out on the streets to protest. So they have agency. This is a new kind of agency in a new kind of global world. And no matter what can say, you can deride globalization, you can call globalists names. Globalism is impossible to destroy in the world we are living today. It will change shape. I can tell you how it will change shape. That is for later. But it is changing shape. It is moving. But globalists are here to stay.
Excellent. So we have a very complex agency, if I'm inferring from your talks rightly, and we have also the concept of institutions and how we interact between these two is a very matter of interest and in intellect. Now, Mr. Zatulin.
Okay, I will try in English in order not to do difficulties for you. First of all, about United Nations. I agree. The world is more than 5 members of Security Council. I think, I'm sure that the majority, the whole here in this hall will agree. At least we need to hear the voice of United Nations, of United States, France, England, and China, to be sure that they also agree with this. Of course, we in Russia have a a vision how to enlarge the Security Council, and it was officially proclaimed whom we would see in addition with this crucial voice of veto in Security Council. But at least we need to know that the good is better with the good is better with the лучший, как сказать? The better is the good is better than better. You see, for this it's very difficult to implement this idea because every country have their own vision who need to be in the Security Council, and we need to have a conclusion. Just now, for several years, we have discussion and we didn't conclude, didn't keep to result. But I need to add about another agencies. We create with the participation of Islamic Republic of Iran, BRICS, Shanghai Organization. This is a new type of organizations which try to implement interest within Eurasia, where we live. During the first part of our forum, very oftenly you speak about region. So when we talk about region, we could name Iran, we could name Turkey, we could name India, China. Russia is the member of this Eurasian region. I don't know whether or not United States or, for example, England is the member of the region. They are not the member of the region. And or Europe, European Union is not the member of this region here in Eurasia. That's why I think we have many things and thoughts about how to develop this idea of regional cooperation. This is which I'm very fond about. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to Eastern Europe.
Well, I'm not going to speak about the Permanent Council of United Nations. I agree with everything has been said. Yes, I agree that, the new structures of the future order or order in building are emerging from Eurasia. I agree, and it was mentioned. As far as my country is concerned, my country is a member of the European Union. And I think that the proper answer to your question, or the best answer I can give, is to speak for 1 or 2 minutes about what European Union could do, because unlike my dear friend Jürgen Fassleben in the previous panel, I believe that indeed, on one hand, European Union is irrelevant strategically in this moment. Irrelevant, not relevant, yes. And this is not a fate, this is not the destiny of the European Union. European Union could be relevant and should do things. At the same time, following my first ideas, I don't think that is a time for the European Union to shape the world order. But I think that European Union should engage in negotiation, in talks with those who are in Eurasia, Asia, the main actors, the main architects, better said, of the new order, in order to make sure that this order would include also our aspiration, our values, our interests. From this perspective, I think that European Union should do urgently the following. Number one, to give up the approach consisting in ideologization of the international relations. We are extremely ideological. We should be non-ideological at all. Secondly, we should cease being the last, perhaps, champion of neoconservatism. I think that Trump administration is tackling more realism in the international relations, and the European Union remained to a certain extent the last neocon. I think that this should be also eradicated for the sake of the European Union, not for the good of the whole world. Number three, I think that the European Union should make a very important choice about its legal identity. Are we a soft power, or if you want, geopolitical identity? Are we a soft power as we were supposed to be? And that was our idea in the beginning. The grandmother of the European Union, was planning a Europe which, number one, protected us, the Europeans, against the war between ourselves, and secondly, would spread the peace in Europe. Now it becomes some worrisome, and I think that we have to make a choice. Third or fourth, we have to choose between war and peace. War and peace. And speaking about war, I'm not thinking only to war in Ukraine, so this is the most obvious one.
They have more wars than elsewhere,
Which
not only.
absolute, and which I consider to be not a war, or not primarily war between Ukrainians and Russians, but between the global West or Euro-Atlantic West and Russia. Ukraine is just a victim on the ground. And my last point, we have to make a choice. The European Union should make a choice between America and Asia. We were dependent on security, on America for our security, basically hard security, for decades. I think it doesn't mean that we have to, seize or become, the rivals or the enemies of United States. But I think that if we speak about accents, for us, it is a time to make a choice between the two. Where is our future partner? And I think that this is one. It's not about replacing, and I will end with that. It's not about replacing United States, America with Russia. It's not about that. But it's about adding to our transatlantic relations a special relation with Asia, and Asia players, Iran, China, Japan, India, Turkey, and also Russia. I agree that Russia is an Euro-Asiatic countries. And this accent is extremely important. And I think these are the choices, quickly speaking, in front of which European Union finds itself today.
Very good. I'm really happy to see how the issue of agency is looked from different angles: Europeans, Union, Russia, and the other parts of the world. So we have not just multiple agency, but multiple forms of exerting the agency, which I think is very interesting, this panel. Now we go to Ambassador Manal to tell us how you see the issue of agency from the Swedish side, and also you are the only lady in our panel. How you see the issue of agency from the, let's say, other side of issues that we have to be concerned of.
I'll take the first one. The second one, I wasn't nominated to speak on behalf of all of the ladies, so I skip on that.
But we look at you as the representative of a thought. Yeah.
Thank you. So I will say that, first of all, we have to go back to what I said. We have to understand what got us where we are. If we look at, very briefly, if we look at this wave of globalization and wave of New World Order, and then the ramification of it, which really instigated a lot of identity politics and identity conflicts, trying to not escape globalization or being a global, but trying to really champion what it means to be Iranian, what it means to be Saudi, what it means to be Palestinian, what it means to be European. That, I think, will explain a lot of the currents that we see worldwide, in the Arab and the Islamic world, here, Asia, Europe, everywhere else, even in the United States, we saw the ramification of that. So that's maybe one of the lessons learned. The second is that you really cannot escape the grassroots to the issues. So while, for example, in Europe, in the past some years, we have been lectured to come and take the lesson of Europe in managing our relationship, with our neighbors. Then all of a sudden you have Ukraine pop up. And then you have, that become a challenge and an obstacle. You have the issue of Palestine, where we keep saying that if we don't address the grassroots of the issue, which is the occupation, you will always have problems occurring. So it's sometimes a dormant conflict, sometimes it erupts, and every time it erupts, it's even more violent than the cycle before. That's another lessons learned. Also, which is something that is very important, trust is not something that can come easily. Not between brothers and one family, a European family, or the Arab countries of the Gulf and Iran and others. It's not easy, and words have to match action. Now, what did we do in Saudi Arabia? I think we had in the past maybe a decade or so, but more precisely 5 or 6 years, really focused on taking agency at the national level. Making sure that the objective, even of our foreign policy, is how do we service Saudis? How do we service our sellers? And this is through capacity building, through learning best practices. Also, if we really want to live in a prosperous world, and if we really want to be, as the Crown Prince had said, the new Europe of the world, we have to take care of our neighbors. So our focus was also on de-escalation, but not in a way that would bury the grassroots of the problems that we have with our family members, the wider family, or with our partners, but to address them right on, head on. And I think the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran is a testimony to that. But more so, we also view ourselves not just as a regional power, but we also take responsibility at the global stage. And hence, for example, you saw the talks that was hosted in Saudi Arabia between Russia and Ukraine, and the fact that we used our good offices between the two countries. I don't think that any one of our countries should be choosing. It's not about taking the US out because they failed at something, or bringing Russia in, or bringing some kind of an Asian association, or seeing as Euro-Israel or not. I think we have to go back to this connectedness. That is extremely important. All of us here together, usually have to battle and more. And we all always have obtained the responsibility to teach those who see are going the wrong path what we know about correcting is banned rather than neglecting, and rather than going into a path of confrontation, rather than a path of conversion.
Thank you. So, I like my colleagues here are coming from small countries. All those countries are from 3, 5 to 100 times even more bigger than Croatia. So, but I think beauty stores. You can try. Okay, so what is the perspective, I think, of most small countries in the international community? Of course, we cannot be superpower. We cannot fight really with big states, with allies, or so what. But we can defend ourselves. We proved 30 years ago we had a liberation war and we won with little help of our friends as a bit. But our only interest is to have peace, because small countries can be completely destroyed in wars, and it's for us essential to have international community based on rule of law, based on strong institution, and of course some kind of solidarity. This is shield for small countries, and we can survive only having those 3 important principles. So, European Union. I'm very proud during my mandate my country became a member of European Union, and we consider it as a step forward to our security and our development. And really, the membership to European Union helped us a lot. And I completely agree with agenda envisioned by Europe, but it's not possible to be performed now because the European Union is not ready for this. It's not ready because we are missing some important elements. European Union, in my opinion, and I'm probably very rare of European politicians or former politicians thinking on that way. European Union should be United States of Europe, with single foreign policy, with single security policy, with more coherent global approach to international scene. There's the only possibility for European Union to be partner building international peace and new structure and whatever, and having place on the round table between together with other countries. So I claim that future of European Union will be good, successful, and important if we transform our organization, it's not state, unfortunately, to United States of Europe. That's first precondition. Unfortunately, still most or almost all politicians are following our wording: it's better to be first in the village than second in the city. And this is a big obstacle among politicians. So we have to finally elect politicians in particular countries being aware of importance of European unity. That's very important. And question, should we choose between China, United States, Russia? No, we have to be partners with all of them. With all of them, equal partner, and fight together for more secure world.
Very interesting and dynamic discussion. Actually, what I gather is the issue of agency is so interesting to discuss, and it really has impact on the emerging global order. Now, since we have not just agency on the panel, we have agency in the audience. So we turn to the audience for a few questions. We don't have that much time. The first question goes to Professor Bakshi, who has some comments. He is our professor from Turkey, longtime friend, and well respected inside our country. Yes.
No. Take.
Man.
You would take this.
Turkish. God.
Student teacher. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting. Some comments for the lady, first of all. How do you see the Islamic woman's position in the new emerging world order? Because the women are suffering mostly in the Islamic countries, in quotation. This is very clear. And you are probably having some ideas how to prove it. Just teach us. Second one, India. India is really interesting. A new emerging power. Not only the recent Pakistani-Indian conflict, but also China and India having some troubles. My question directly, India's rising, would it lead to the membership of the United Nations as a permanent one? Because you became number 5 in world economy so far. Russia is interesting. You have spoken in Russian, I didn't understand this, but in English much better. Could you please explain me how long can we be the witness of this, I quoted, unnecessary conflict between Ukraine and Russia? More than 3 years. Is it not enough? You should be the country which is making this, I would say, advantageous position that you come to the table and talk. To leave the table or saying that you want to come to a table but not come later on created such a big disappointment in my country and in the world. Tomorrow, what is your president is going to say to President?
I just need you fork him.
No, wait.
And small is beautiful, I agree. Small is beautiful, definitely.
Yeah, we have limited time.
Yes, one because of the European Union, both of them I would like to say. Everybody is talking that European Union is not going to have a big future and the European Union should become United States of America. Europe is a normative one. We are moving to more transactional one. My question is to you. How do you bring it together, this transactional reality versus normative power?
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Bakshi. We have young leaders of TDF. Please introduce yourself and then your question. So we shift between different generation, different agency. We go back to the, yeah.
This is their microphone. It's very
Thank you. So my name is Hassan Swaidan. I'm from Lebanon and part of the Young Leaders Program. I have a question for Mr. Zeki, please. And to what limit, and any of the guests, please, you can answer. To what limit do you think that today the problem is defining the basic needs to reach an order? For example, several of you spoke about being optimistic to the future, but for Turkey, being the optimistic image or the optimistic order is different maybe from what India sees, what Russia sees, and what Iran sees, what Saudi Arabia and other countries. So the problem is that every power and country of the world sees optimism in its own point of view. And what's happening in the region today, in the Middle East mainly, and maybe in Eastern Europe, also leads to the conclusion that certain powers have no matter for the disorder to continue for more while, if the order that's going to be shaped serves its interests more. And the final comment is regarding peace, because also some spoke about the peace. Is peace today debatable or not? Because, for example, in the region, some see peace in normalizations, others see peace as having Israel just removed from the region. So having all these basic terms debatable, how do you view the world order? Thank you.
Thank you. So we go to Professor Paolo. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Convergence or divergence? I think there is no convergence here. We have a war which is spreading around. As the Pope was saying, is a world war in pieces. We have the situation in Ukraine and Russia. We have the situation in the Middle East, which is growing a disaster. We have the situation between India and Pakistan has been contained, but we have to see. And the one characteristic of this, common characteristic of these wars, is that they involve countries which possess nuclear weapons. So the point is that not so much question whether there is a convergence or divergence, but is how to go back to convergence. Namely, how you go back to eliminating the war which are around. And this is not so much an issue in terms of institution, it's an issue in terms of political arrangements, a cooperation, a reciprocal understanding, which is lacking. Now it's lacking. So we are running risks, serious risks. We're going to have a discussion about this, I think, tomorrow. But nevertheless, it's important that we do not limit ourselves to the abstract consideration in terms of institution, agency, whatever it is, but or how eliminate the wars.
Thank you. One final question we get from you. Yep. Please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Bassem, I'm member of Political Bureau of Hamas based in Gaza. And thank you very much for all what we have heard. My specific question, we have learned a lesson from history. Falling down of empires or world order is usually very brutal and bloody and painful, especially for small nations. And the question is, decide thinking about the future, which can take maybe 2-3 decades to be well structured and formulated in a new world order, if we will have a new world order. Because from unipolar order, we are talking now about 30 years. During this time, I have also an urgent mission, how to prevent or to minimize the prices for people like the Palestinians today who are paying the price for this paralyzed order today. What we are observing in Gaza, for example, 143 countries voting for stopping the genocide, and one country, the United States, is blocking everything. And it has been repeated along the last 17 months. Therefore, the question is, yes, it is very romantic, academic to think how it will be the scenarios. But the most urgent, I am a doctor, therefore, before thinking of the long-term surgeries, the first step is to stop the bleeding and to treat the
the cause. Therefore, the question is how can we minimize or decline or the prices of this transitional zone,
Thank you.
transitional phase.
So we have a set of questions and comments from the audience. Now I want to have the minimal time for every panelist, maybe for 1 minute, to have the answer as well as any comment that they may have. We have to wrap up. If there is no order in international system of a meeting as order, you have to finish in a few minutes. We start from Mr. President.
Okay, I will concentrate on this question about European Union. You know, I'm frequently having lectures on future of European Union, and always at the very beginning I stress my vision is still utopia. No chances today to perform it. Why? Because the principle, it's better to be first in the village than second in the city, prevails among politicians. That's the basic obstacle. But I'm sure that not only long-term political pressure, as it was when European Union was created, but also reality, political reality will move European Union. I don't know in how many years, but this time will come sooner or later. So I'm optimist. I think European Union has good future. I think it will be going to be important, equal player together with United States, with Russia, with India, with all these powerful countries. Because European Union, if you look at economical basis of European Union, scientific potentials, cultural potentials, it's capable to be superpower. It's capable for this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Ambas. Madam Ambassador, yeah.
Thank you, Adrian. I didn't expect this question, but thank you, Professor. Again, I am against binaries because I don't think that, your question implies that men around the Muslim world are enjoying their freedom, liberty, and success, and only women are suffering. So I don't think that there would be women rights if there are no men's rights, and when the women are undermined and prevented from fully expressing themselves and ensuring their rights, then the men also suffer. So this is a false binary. The second, you're also implying that women and the Muslim women are suffering. So non-Muslim women are not suffering. I think that is also something that we have to think about. Now, I am not saying this in a defensive manner to say, all things are rosy and all things are great. They are not anywhere in the world, frankly speaking. Not for men, not for women, and including in Muslim societies. What we have to understand, and I will bring the example of Palestinian women in Gaza suffering from the occupation. So they are suffering from the occupation just like their brothers are. We need to understand maybe they have a particular experience and we have to be sensitive to that. But we also have to really underline exactly the grassroots. Why are we here? And not take it in a defensive way, but take it in a proactive way. Finally, if you are asking for remedy, I think we have to unpack all of the stereotypes around us and around who we are, and also look at complementarities, because I think the Palestinian women are a prime example to women all around the world. And we need to respect that, and we need to learn from that in their resistance, in what they uphold, regardless what they are Muslim or if they're not Muslim. But just by the experience of occupation, they have shown this example. I am pretty sure that Saudi women have a lot to offer, including to women in Europe and women in the United States. And I am sure that the experience of women in the West in general have so much to offer also to us. So we need to not think in these binary ways, but to think in this complementarity.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
Yeah, I will try to answer the question of the gentleman. Peace does not mean the absence of war. Peace means something more, something else, means rules, and rules which are not just guarded by army with weapons, but by our own belief that those are the rules with which we can live in a dignifying way. But rules could not exist without a vision, vision could not last without institutions, and institutions could not function without people. As for the European Union, I would follow the words of Jean Monnet, who said the European Union will advance, or the European whatever community would advance not by choice but by necessity. And I think that the necessity will direct us to what it is necessary. I agree, I share your point of view. I am for the United States of Europe. It's not transactional or normative, it's federative. But these are not the United States of America, because we are nation states, and this would be a federation, a union of nation states which are sharing their sovereignty in order to go towards a target which means our common goals.
Excellent, Mr. Zofi.
Thank you. You asked me the question about Ukrainian war. First of all, the nature and origin of this war. It's not the war between Russians and Ukrainians, between Russia and Ukraine. First of all, it's a civil war within former Soviet Union who is dying but not died yet. Secondly, it's the war Russia with the West, who didn't want Russia as a Soviet Union in the world state, and tried to do the best from the very beginning, from the 1991, to do everything to prevent some kind of emerging Russia. That's the reason of this war. And the reason of this war, how long it could be, I heard your advice. For me, 3 years enough, of course, but what will be the result and to what conclusion we came, we don't know just now. I will phone to Mr. Putin just now. I'll try it. Ask him what he will say tomorrow at 10 o'clock. But I think that the reason why we're phoning and we're to some extent understand each other, because Trump also already said, but he knows that what was the origins of this war, the enlarging of NATO to the east. You know, what was the reason of Caribbean crisis in 1961? Somebody said that the reason was of Cuba, Fidel Castro. But we know that the reason was the American rockets in Turkey. And which was the reason of Caribbean crisis, really? If we came to conclusion not to do this, in this case, it ends this day. That's what I could say. And I could add, I heard the hope of Mr. President that Europe will be United States of Europe. By the way, in 1902, Vladimir Lenin wrote an article about the United States of Europe. In 1902. So it was a week ago, a century ago. I think that it will, I don't know, but for me, it will be better it will not happen. But in this case, it will, if European Union becomes United States of Europe, in this case, no Croatia, no Turkey, no France, no anybody which have their own culture, own way in history, and their own nationalities. What was the reason? We became like a United States in Brussels. That's for its additional view.
Okay, this is a Leninist night. Yeah. Now we have Mr. Joshi. We don't have that.
Quick response question specifically to India, which we asked India in the emerging order. I'll try to cover the larger question there also. India in the UN Security Council, well, with the support of Turkey, maybe. Turkey, great idea. But see, the larger question is the voting pattern of the UNSC. Can it survive? Can the UNSC function with a P5 or a P6 or a P7, whatever it is, still have has a veto power? You still get back into the same kind of logjams. So there are larger, deeper structural reforms which need to take place there. Meanwhile, if you have a defunct kind of broken organization, what is happening? What you see happening around you is there's a regional order emerging, and where you will see more and more examples of regional order coming forward, whether regional order in different trading blocks like the ASEAN, which has come up with a very strong contending force, which in many ways will be defining the new mode of globalization, as the globalization is not dead. So you will find many regional models coming up on in a larger context. For example, the BRICS, the G20, which at one point when India took the lead of G20, India showed how a G20 summit could be run a whole year. And it was not a country's G20. It was not just the G20 members. They made it a people's G20, which went out to normal people, institutions across the world, across multiple countries, which led to the expansion then of the G20. So there are lots of other forums which are coming up. So for some years, yes, there is an order which is emerging, which is shifting. And there are, as Dr. Zarif said in the afternoon lunch session today, that you will have these shifting coalitions of interests taking shape. But within the shifting coalitions, I see a strong force for regional powers coming together, as you are seeing right here in this region. The rapprochement which happened between Iran, Saudi Arabia, Emiratis, and all the others, coming together to start resolving regional issues. You will have to see more and more traction on these fronts till a larger global order emerges.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very briefly, I think the first two questions were about questioning, our optimism as to how we can be optimistic when there is so much divergence among ourselves, when the wars are, rather than fading out or even spreading in the whole world. You might be right, but I think sometimes things get worse before it gets better. And my idea is that I'm hoping that, given the wide-ranging impact of the crisis that we are facing today, I'm hoping that all the countries will understand that there is no longer room for parochial national interests, that security is indeed indivisible. No matter what we do in what part of the world will have wide-ranging repercussions in the rest of the world as well. For example, think of Russia-Ukraine war. Many people thought that it would be maybe only regional impacted war in Europe and Black Sea. But immediately after that war, we have seen the food crisis emerging in Africa, in Latin America. Think of, God forbid, a conflict between China and Taiwan. Do you think it would just be a regional conflict when you think that the global maritime trade, 70%, more than 70% is going through the Taiwan Strait? So I'm hoping that people will come to this awareness, will realize that either their or others' actions in any part of the world will have wide-ranging repercussions, and that they need to be as such. And institutions, and as to the, our vision for the future. I think our vision for the future, and I think I can speak for all of us, is institutions that provide a platform for dialogue and diplomacy, that are inclusive and prioritizes cooperation rather than confrontation. And unlike the present United Nations Security Council, is more representative in its membership, is more fair in its implementation, and is more, I would say, effective in its own decisions. I think we can all agree on those kind of things for the future vision. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we had a very interesting discussion. In the end, I have some points, but before I have my points, I welcome the presence of His Excellency Dr. Arashi to our panel. Of course, it's a surprise, and we talk about agencies, so we have a very important agency here, that is the Foreign Minister of Iran. Now, if we want to sum up the meeting, it's very difficult. It was really rich, but I came, if you asked me this question, what's your takeaway from this wonderful, diverse panel? I came to a type of ABC regarding international order, disorder, convergence, divergence. A, BC. A, assumptions should be revisited. Assumptions of Pax America. Assumptions of looking at international global order in a binary, let's say, perspective. Assumptions that power is the same as it was before. So the assumptions need to be revisited. And I think this revisiting is very essential for both understanding the realities of international relations as well as how we manage the challenges of today. and assumptions were so many and so interesting. I just pinpoint a few. Building blocks of emerging international orders. It is, of course, P5 matter. P5, we cannot ignore P5, but the global international scene is not just about P5. The smaller states matter. Regional players matter. The regional players in different regions really are impacting. New emerging powers matter. And also, building blocks is not just about the states, the issues, the individuals even matter, the ideas matter. So this set of complex building blocks should be taken into account if we want to both intellectually understand international politics as well to manage the regards of foreign policy and international relations. And my C is context. The context is so dynamic, is so diverse, is so changing, but elements of continuity is also there. And I really was impressed by a very important point that Ambassador Manal started with, and that is emotions. Emotions matter in this context. We are also happy that we have a new, let's say, approach from Saudi Arabia, which really matters, not just on very solid, let's say, raw national interest base. It has also is mixed with emotions. Good emotions matter because it adds to, let's say, realities as a factor in the positive sense. So we are dealing with a new reality in which, in this context, we have conflicts. We have to end the conflicts. We have responsibility. Be it Palestinian conflict with Ukrainian, everybody should really think and work. But this context is mixed, is multi-layer, and I think the takeaway is that this ABC can really help and understand. But more importantly, I think we enjoyed the panel, we enjoyed the discussion, and I have to thank all the panelists. I have to thank my colleagues in IPIS, and I have to really express my feeling that this is Iran. Iran is about dialogue. This is Tehran Forum Dialogue. IPIS is open to dialogue. Iran is an agent in international politics, in regional politics, and we require more interaction and dialogue, and we wish success for all. Join me in thanking all the panelists and you, and you have an announcement that in this housekeeping, that there is a cultural event. They know that we are tired, so you go to the cultural event from here just next door. And all for international guests as well, those Iranians who have Iranian card holder. So the space is limited. And thank you again. And we don't have time. I apologize for the others. And see you in the cultural affairs. Thank you.